welcome. So I am Melissa Gibbons. I'm one of the grants chairs at Impact Yavapai County, and we have a couple of our team members on here that I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So just as a quick, Catherine, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so excited to have Deb with us this year. It's a new addition to the program. So we're very excited and hope that it's exciting for you guys as well. I'm one of the co-presidents of Impact with Stevie Ann Martinez, who is not going to be on the call today. But if you haven't met her, you'll meet her soon. Congratulations to all of you. We're thrilled to be at this stage with 5 finalists. And we can't wait until May 4th. And we hope that Deb will help to make all your presentations that much stronger for us, but also that much stronger in future pitches. So welcome, and I'm thrilled to kick this off. And I think we also have Jenny on here, who's our current vice president.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny San Jose. For those of you who haven't met, I'm vice president of Impact this year. And to echo Catherine, congratulations to all of you. It was a very competitive pool this year, and we were just blown away by all of your proposals. So congratulations for making it to here. And I know we throw a lot of information at you for this next part, but we're really here to support you and to make sure that you put your best foot forward at the annual meeting. And so we're rooting for all of you. And Melissa will be your guide in this whole process leading up to May 4th. So thank you for being here.
Great. Great. So just a couple of housekeeping. So we are recording. So, but it looks like everyone's represented here. So that's great. But if for some reason you do want access to the recording, Deb would be the person to contact for that. I'm going to quickly, you all should have received our packet of instructions. I'm going to go over that at a very high level. I know there's a lot of information in there. You can reach out to me on an individual basis. You can put questions in the chat. You can raise your hand here. But so this is kind of one opportunity to get clarity if needed on kind of some of these next steps. And then once I'm done with that, Deb is going to do her workshop. We're thrilled to have her. She's the owner of Speak Up on Purpose and the founder of the Business Speaker Academy. And in addition to today's workshop, she's available for 2 separate sessions with each organization to help you with your presentation and give you guidance. So these are all optional kind of resources for you, but we hope that you find them value added. With that said, so the annual meetings, as you know, this is all in preparation for our annual meeting, which is Wednesday, May 4th at the Woodway Country Club. And we're excited to be hosting it in person again. We've had to go virtual like the rest of the world for obvious reasons. And so this is going to be a really exciting time for us to get back together. And we will have tables set up for each of you. So come early and have your tables set up. You'll be able to have up to 4 people at those tables to answer questions as our members are arriving and settling in. And so the arrival can start at 9:15, and then the guests will start to arrive, and at 10 o'clock we'll start the event. And the presentations will start at 10:30. You'll each have your time for that. And then we'll have the vote, and there'll be a moment where we'll be gathering the votes and for the results and make the announcement right there. And then at the end of that announcement, the winner will have the opportunity to address the membership. So in preparation, this is all kind of about helping you make the most of that time in front of our audience. There are some things we will need in advance of the meeting. There's the list of kind of it's actually a week from today that we're hoping you can send us your logo, a couple of pictures that represent your organization, the executive summary, which has a lot of details in that packet, the names of the people who will be presenting and their contact information. And I think that's mostly it. So that's all spelled out in that packet of what's due a week from today.
I'm just going to interrupt for one quick second there, Melissa. Just with those instructions, we want to be really clear with the executive summary. There's specific fonts and sizes on that. We really want it to look coherent in our member packet that we give out. So we ask that you do not change alignments or spacing or things like that. It is called out in the document Melissa sent you. So just keep it in that format. And it just helps us with we have to turn around all this paperwork very quickly to our membership. So anything you guys can do to just follow those guidelines is really helpful. And again, if you have any questions on it or any issues with a font or something, please just reach out to Melissa or one of us, and we're happy to assist.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Jenny, also jump in at any point. So for the presentation, I think we provided kind of a list of bullets of kind of some of our suggestions. Deb's obviously going to give her more professionally informed guidance on that as well. But one of the most important things is the time limit. You'll each have 8 minutes. You won't have anything longer than 8 minutes. We will interrupt and stop the presentation at 8 minutes. And despite us saying this every year, we unfortunately do have people that do lose track of time. And I can't say enough how much it really deflates the energy and we do think impacts your chances of being really considered for the grant. So the most important thing is to keep to that 8 minutes and practice to make sure that is in fact where you're landing with your presentation. We only allow 2 people as part of your presentations. They can't be members of Impact for obvious reasons. And we also ask that you don't have a client as one of your speakers. We are going to actually today, and maybe we'll do it right now, we're going to randomly draw to set the order of the presentations. And Jenny is going to do our drum roll kind of random draw or lead us in that. Yeah.
Very exciting moment. I have all of your organization names in this special Impact Orange box. So I'm just going to randomly draw and announce right here. Okay, so our first presenter will be Future 5. Second will be Nourish Bridgeport. Third will be Wakeman Boys and Girls Club. Fourth will be New Reach. And then wrapping up all the presentations will be, of course, Children's Learning Center.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. And I will send out an email to you all confirming that order. And we don't have any reason to think that the order actually impacts anything. So we're doing this just to make sure that there's all a sense of activity and everything like that. But it's a short and wonderful list. And so we're glad to have that established. So the other thing to keep in mind from the impacts perspective around your presentation is you'll have the executive summary, and for most of our members who will be voting that day, that will be the only thing that they will have seen about your project and your organization. And frankly, if that, people are busy, they may have all good intentions to read it beforehand, but you may well be coming into some people who this is really the first opportunity that they're having to learn about the proposals. So we just want you to be mindful that you will definitely have a very friendly group from your review committee members and the people who went to your site visit who are really invested. They know a lot of the details. They want to be up there on the stage with you, adding more information. And it's trying to balance out the time limits and with really communicating what the core pieces are of the project. And this is where we think Deb is going to be really, really helpful to that, providing the basics of it, but also the emotional appeal so that people really feel the work that you're doing out there in the community. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. And then also, so in terms of the executive summary, there's As Catherine said, please do follow that format. It's really important that it's limited to one page, and that it does all look the same as, again, so that it's a level playing field for people. And same with the budget template. If that's provided, just use that as we've provided to you. So I think that's mostly it. Jenny and Catherine, do you have anything else you want to emphasize, or that I may have missed?
I just really emphasize what Melissa was just saying, just because I've seen it in the past. I mean, just to put some quick numbers in your heads on your end so you understand this, we have 262 members, and about half our membership sits on review committees, and there's 5 review committees. So around 30, let's just call it 30 people know your organization and what you're applying for really well, out of 262 people. So that executive summary really is important to the full membership to tell your story on paper. And I know it's a very small way to do that. And then your 8 minutes is your 8 minutes to sell yourself. And Deb is gonna help with this, but I just can't stress enough. Like, I know you all feel that you've really invested a lot in us, but a very small portion of our membership fully understands the details and have the answers to some of the questions that were asked in site visits or via email. So that's just, I really need to emphasize that to all of you guys when you're thinking about your 8 minutes. It's your chance to sell it to some people that don't know much about you. And
I was going to say the same. I was going to say the same thing, and also to remember that of the 262 members, some are very experienced in the nonprofit world and some are not. So I would also stress to make sure that you're not using any jargon that is, really specific to your field or your organization. Try to keep it as easily understandable and comprehensible as possible to a layperson, because that is really the audience here that you should assume.
Yeah. And one more last thought, and then we'll turn it over to Deb, is who's doing your presenting is a big part of how you're communicating, and it doesn't necessarily have to be only or just your most senior or your most established. It really it's up to you all to decide how to best communicate where you're in, how you're having impact, and what that looks like. And that can take a lot of different forms, and we want you to feel like that we don't necessarily on our end have expectations around who that is, other than it not being a client in your organization. That's just one tool that you have to work with. So
yeah, and the more you can connect with the membership, the more it means to them to vote for you too. I mean, it's just a very important skill set to be able to present this, and not just for impact, for all of your grants that you're applying for and looking for. So hopefully Deb can help make all of your presentations as strong as possible.
Yeah, right. So any questions before we have Deb begin her section? And again,
Sorry, I just had a quick clarifying question. I know the executive summary is on that Google form. So is there do we submit it through Google or do we email it? I just want to make sure we're clear on the submission for that.
It's a good question. So you can share it back. You can,
Okay.
When it's funded, you can, is probably the best way, because that's going to be the format that we use to assemble them all.
Okay. Perfect.
I think otherwise to email it, you'd have to download it as a PDF or as a Word. If you want to have the ability to work on it without thinking I'm looking, believe me, I'm not going to be looking, but you could either copy it and then reshare it back, however you want to do it within your organization. But you can be assured too, I'm not tracking anyone's grant writing process. So,
Okay.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
This is Margaret Reynolds. I have a quick question, if there's a minute. Along those lines, what Meredith just asked, but I did download it into Word. So I don't know if that'll be a problem. I'll see if I can share it back. But is there it ran onto the second page with the chart at the bottom. Is there a limit with the words or characters in the first section, in the sort of organization background, that area, organization and project description?
So it does need to fit onto one page and it does need to be in that font. So that font is not in Word from what I was able to determine. So if you can.
I can go back to the Google form.
That's what we recommend. I mean, if you're more comfortable working in Word, but then you would then need to put it back into
Copy
the
it back.
Google format and make sure that it does then still work within the original template.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
And then just one more follow-up to that. Catherine, you mentioned pictures and stuff. Do you want that separate from the actual page, or do you want us to try to fit that on the same?
No, the pictures are separate. Great question. I'm so glad you asked that. The logos and the pictures, you can send those at really at any time. Those are for, for publicity's purposes, signage kind of thing. So it's kind of separate and will not be seen by our membership. So our membership will not have access and see those pictures as part of their consideration.
And do you want them to email those to GrantSat? Is that on the GrantSat email
Yeah, it's in the
address?
instructions.
It's on
It's
there.
in the packet.
Yeah, so just email those separately, and then the executive summary should be one page and the Excel document should be one page.
And those will be the components of what the membership sees. The other information we requested is for our own organizational use. Yes. Sarah.
I wanted to clarify what Catherine just said. The executive summary is one page, but then we have the page of additional information, correct? Or
No, so that additional information, that chart is part of your one-page executive summary. So it's very short.
okay.
If you look in the sample of with all the instructions, you'll see the ABC, I think it's ABC literacy program. That's what it will look like. That should all the charts at the bottom. The executive summary should be that one page, and then your Excel document is a second page. Does that make sense?
Okay.
The
great.
ABC one is just a template for you to see what it would look like.
All right. Questions from here can go to grants, the grants email, and we will let Deb now start her workshop. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It was the year 2019, way back before our world changed forever. And I had an opportunity fall right into my lap. One of those opportunities that are so good that you just don't want to say no. Maybe that's how you feel about being a finalist right now. Well, it turns out my friend who works for British Airways invited me to London with her, first class on a free pass. So I'll tell you, no matter how busy my calendar looked, I found a way to do one thing: say yes. So there I was on holiday, as the Brits call it, and London is a bright, beautiful city, bustling with sirens, cute little sing-song sirens, and tiny little cars with cute little horns. And when you look up, it's bursting with color, from the iconic fire engine red phone booths to the red and blue double-decker buses rumbling down, actually a cobblestone street. But it is when you look down, as in many of our cities, is when I became troubled. Because when I looked down, I saw men and women laying and some sitting on the sidewalk. When I looked down, I saw the grays and browns, that is poverty and people without a home. I instinctively held my breath so I didn't inhale as I walked by. Keep looking up, I told myself. When I looked up, I saw cathedrals and palatial palaces. But when I looked down, I saw cardboard homes and blanket tents. So I told myself, just look up. But if I hadn't looked down, I would have stepped on a man's hand that was stretched across the sidewalk. Some of the people had hats and others had buckets. Some asked for money as we walked by, but most were silent. And I didn't know what to do. And all my assumptions and judgments and justifications came bubbling to the surface. There was my defensiveness. I'm on vacation, and this isn't my country. There was my justification. I give to my church and other groups. There was my indecision. How can I give to one and not others? And if I do, will it really make a difference? And I wasn't prepared. There wasn't a way for an easy yes. So I'm embarrassed to say I did nothing. Soon we were on our way back home on the British Airways flight, and I realized I still had like $30 in pounds and pence in my purse. And my friend said, oh, don't worry about it. You know, we go to London all the time, and I can give you American money for it. So that sounded good. And then the flight attendant came by with a menu, and she dropped an opportunity right in my lap. It was an envelope, and on the front it said, if you have currency left over, you can deposit it here. Our aim is to tackle poverty in communities in which we travel to. I just felt this huge sigh of relief. I felt this calmness wash over me. And all I had to do was say yes. So I dropped my change from my purse into the envelope. Now, this isn't always an easy story for me to share. It doesn't show me in the best light. But whenever I speak to a group, I always think about what might be most beneficial to my audience. And so the reason I'm sharing it isn't about me at all. It's about seeing your organization through the eyes of a donor like me. You know, we care about so many things. We're busy, we're stressed. And I wanted you to understand about all the fears and doubts and assumptions and judgments that we might go through that keep us from saying yes. And in this situation and moving forward, I wanted you to understand that you just have 4 simple things for us to say yes. First, you have to get us to stop. Then you have to help us listen. Then you have to help us to care. And then we can act. And that is what I'm here to help you do today, and I'm really excited about. I want to show you the power that's possible in even 8 minutes. As a matter of fact, Impact 100 Milwaukee only has 5. So I think you guys have a great extra 2 minutes there, 3 minutes. And I want you to help you in the future to move your audiences and your donors to this stop, listen, care about your organization. Now, before I go into my teaching points, I'd like to debrief this opening together. And that's on the first part of your handouts if you were able to print them out. If not, you can take some notes. So what stood out for you in that opening that I shared with you? And this is workshop form, so everybody come off mute and just talk together. I just love that interaction. And just share what you thought or heard that you remember that stood out.
Your vulnerability.
Thank you, Reverend Sarah. Yes, vulnerability. Yes, the authenticness of sharing our vulnerability is really important. And that's how one of the ways we make an emotional connection with our audience. What else? Anyone else?
Also, your story was so descriptive that I could picture myself there.
Yes, the vivid details that brought London to life for you, the details of laying across the sidewalks. And I will tell you that this is a real event that actually happened to me, but it was only through sitting down and writing it that some of those details could come to life and I could share them in a way that you would be able to see it. Exactly, Marcia. Thank you. Anything else you noticed?
The contrast that you drew was very sharp and very, I think that's what made you stop, because at first you're kind of floating along and it was great and it was nice and I was smiling, and then you looked down.
And then I looked down. Exactly. beautiful, Kellyanne. Yes, that was another technique we use in elements of presentation. So there was this contrast, and also in the words itself, their repetition. When I look up, when I look down, when I look up, when I look down. So it's a technique that we can use to show that stark contrast, or to, you know, bring meaning into, yes, to getting us to pay attention and really care. Yes, you're pointing out all of the good elements that I wanted you to notice. Anything else?
I think driving that final point home of like exactly how you were going to make the difference, even though it wasn't necessarily maybe the thing you thought you were going to do, still that there was an opportunity right in front of you for you to make a difference.
Yes. And so you notice how I started with that opportunity and then I ended with an opportunity. And I saw both of them as an easy way to say yes. And so then that became the format that I took for my beginning, middle, and end. Yes. And we can do that. We can do these kinds of things all the time. And they get easier the more you practice them. And, you know, this is a great way that I was able to give you a lot of the tools that I use in presentation skills to help you and get a chance to try some. And we'll talk more about those going forward. So I think you picked up on every one that I had. So thank you very much for that. You notice how I even brought some sounds into it, so we can bring, you know, other senses into this moment if that's appropriate. And I had one teaching point. I wanted you to understand that your donors, you need to help your donors stop, listen, care, act. And that's a great thing to remember for your 8-minute talk. So that was great. And I'm going to share a few more points here. The first one is, does anyone know how many words is in an 8-minute talk? It's 1,200. So write that down. And I would really encourage you, one of the first things I talk with my groups about is to understand that there needs to be a brainstorming phase, this free writing phase that just gets you going. You know, take out a piece of paper, because there's a lot that comes out through the hand on the page, a creative force, than also just on the computer. And I gave you some brainstorming questions to think about. You know, what are some misperceptions people might have about your organization? What would shock people? How does your story relate to your organization, your personal story? So if any of them come to mind for you, you know, just have some fun and use some creative energy to just go through that little brainstorming phase. And that's where a lot of ideas come from. And another one that Melissa and Jenny San Jose and everyone talked about was knowing your audience. So when you think about your audience, you want to think about the women of Impact 100 Fairfield, right? Like, what are their challenges? What do they care about? What does their day-to-day life look like? And if you can zero in on that, it can create quite a powerful talk. One of my favorites from one of the other Impact 100 groups I did was a pastor who was wanted to build a new kitchen for his boys club. And so we thought, how can we convey this to a group? And so he started his talk with a question. Have you ever noticed that no matter how many rooms you have in your home, when family and friends get together, they always wind up in the kitchen? And it's been said the kitchen is the heart of the home. It's the place where we plan and prepare meals together, laugh and have meaningful conversations, and feel connected to the people we love. So he's building that connection and that we all have about our kitchens, and where women go to, you know, have their coffee and chat with a friend, or make a meal, or have that moment where they sit down with their family. And he used that to build the idea and understand that in his youth center, that most of the children have never even experienced a home cooked meal made with fresh ingredients. And then he went on to show what this kitchen would provide. And he ended it by saying, I invite you to join me in changing the health and nutrition and a future for thousands of youth. It is said that food brings a family together. There isn't a better time than now to make our kitchen the heart of the home. So see how he went back to the heart of the home. It's endings are really important, and they have to be crafted just like our openings. So know your audience and think about how that fits into the grant you're looking for. The next point I want to make is to open with a strong grabber attention, or what we call a hook. I started as a writer and I had a newspaper column for 17 years, and I understood the power of the opening. It is probably one of the most important parts of your talk. So open with that kind of hook that grabs the attention. You can start with a shocking statement. You can start with a personal story. You can start with a question. Another gentleman from Kids of Wisconsin, he had a great opening. He asked a question of the audience, and this is a great way to get the audience involved in your talk. He said, I'm curious, I'd like to ask by a show of hands, how many of the kids in your community have access to music programs in your schools? And like he expected, knowing the demographic, everyone raised their hand. He said, that's great. Now I'd like you all to put your hands down except for that one table of 6. And then he paused and he said, 6, that's 6%. That is the percentage of children who have access to music in Milwaukee school system. And probably the number is less in other underprivileged areas. So very dramatic, and he got his point across, and now he builds that understanding, that caring about why they need music in the schools, or his program, which he was specifically showing us. Let's see, another one wanted a big brand new fridge, the commercial type, and his organization receives leftovers from restaurants, and a lot of times they have to turn food away because they don't have a big enough fridge. So I asked him to think about, in his family, how important leftovers were. And he started by saying, one of the best parts about holidays is the day after, when you get to enjoy all the leftovers, right? And so then he goes into how much we throw away, and then he goes into how he wants to take that, and he needs a bigger fridge for that experience and to help his organization. And his organization is called Just One More Ministry. And he ended it by saying, Impact 100, you are women, mothers and grandmothers, giving as one, and you have made a profound impact in our communities. Together, we can feed just one more, and one more, and one more. Thank you. God bless you. So a lot of times the ending and the beginnings can be very powerful if you tie them together. So let's talk about the middle. Making your middle memorable. And I'm on the second page on your handout. So this is like for the structure of your talk. So if you think of the opening as presenting a problem, right? Your middle 3 to 5 points is the solution. And the solution has to be supported by examples, proof of theory, a client story, a personal story, a fact or figure. And this is a place where the fact or figures will come in handy. And keep in mind, we never make decisions. This is proven in psychology based on facts. We always make decisions based on our emotions. So that is why I want you to connect emotionally, and then we can hear the facts. Then we're ready for the facts, So using those different points, you can bring in the proof of your solution, how it's been working, and of course, those ones that are really memorable to you or are really show how amazing this grant will be to your organization. So often people ask me, do you start by thanking Impact 100? So my thought is, you go right into your talk. Before you end, you might say, before I share one last thought, I'd like to thank Impact 100. And so you can do that, thank and ask about really come right out and ask for your $100,000 grant. Say the word out loud, or it's 102,000 or something. No, $100,002, right? Oh, Melissa.
Yeah, wait, sorry, I was on mute. It's 100,000 and 101,000, I think is.
101,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's really important that you actually say it out loud and ask for it, or say how it will be utilized, right? We have to ask for what we want. And then you can end with what I call a wowza moment, the way you might tie it up to the beginning. You could end with a quote. You could end with a startling statistic about the difference you could make. So there's a lot of different ways you can end. Another one I'd like to share is, if you are telling a story, you don't have to say exactly how it happened. You have the opportunity to have what I call poetic license, right? So if someone said this, but you need to shorten it, or you want to make it a little bit more impactful, but the basis foundation of it is truth, you can be a little creative there, so I just wanted to let you know that. So I will keep going a little bit more, but I wanted to stop here and ask if you have any questions. Any thoughts coming to mind?
I guess my one question would be, I know that we're allowed to have, 1 to 2 people present. Is there a thought on what is better with 8 minutes? Can each person really get something out in 4? Or is it better to kind of have one person tell the story?
I'll tell you, Amanda, it's not easy, but it can be done. And the way I saw it done best was by a Milwaukee Public Library. One person handled more of the emotional connection, and then the other person came in with the facts. And so they were a little bit stronger about the message in that way. So have each person have an exact purpose. And it doesn't have to be 50-50 on your time. Just again, think of it as the most impactful way to present it. And also think about the personality of your speaker. Some of us are a little more, based on our personality, outgoing or engaging, or use their hands a lot, like me. Think about that when you're choosing the person, and that can really help too. Good question. And I want you to know that I can help with that also. So, any other thoughts? So I hope you're getting some little aha moments that are happening. Ooh, I might do this, or I might start it that way. So I have here some other openings that I talk about, how to create an awesome opening. Oh, another one I love. And if you think about it, your talk is very similar to a TED Talk in style and format, right? And yes, you have to talk about your organization. We really do need to know that, but we don't need to know all the detail of your organization, just how it relates to the grant, and so how it builds your ask and make it be effective, right? Sometimes I've seen people share so much detail about their organization that their offer gets lost in there, and we're really not sure. So another one is challenging the status quo. I have one of my clients that believes that work-life balance is a myth. So she's just challenging that status quo to say there is no such thing. And she has written a talk called Work-Life Boundaries. So that's another way to look at yours. Is yours a problem solution format? Is it a challenging the status flow format? Is it some new technology that we have to understand how to use? And if you can show us how to use that by talking about a person that will use it. For instance, the library needed more of those ISB connections or something in people's homes. And so they walked us through what that looks like. And that was really helpful too. Another great way to start a talk is to start with imagine. So are you familiar with NAMI, most of you? The Mental Illness, National Alliance on Mental Illness. So they were looking, their grant was for education of police officers and EMTs, 40 hours of instruction to improve interactions with someone in a mental health crisis. So she started her talk. Imagine for a moment that you are calling 911 on your son or nephew or close friend. Your loved one is in a mental health crisis. He's delusional, saying things that are out of touch with reality. He's acting aggressively, and you do not feel safe. As much as you don't want to, you call the police because you know he needs help. You feel you have no other choice. Suddenly, you hear the sirens getting closer, and all you can do is hope for the best outcome. And then she goes on to say how those outcomes are not very successful because the police officers are not instructed. They don't know how to deal with mental illness and how often that goes wrong. And so then she makes her plea for how this instruction will help them. And in the end, she imagines something different. She imagines knowing that her police officers are educated in mental health and that she doesn't have to hope for an outcome. She knows it's going to be a better outcome than she's at right now. So you see how that works there? I wanted to give you some solutions. I talked about the referring back to make a full circle ending. And think about your ending in the same way that we talked about your opening. You can have a quote. You can start your opening with a quote. You can start it with a song. We had one person that was looking for the one for music in the schools. And I was like, start with a song. But I couldn't get him to do it. He was too nervous to take that risk. But I'm like, okay. So I will suggest things and you get to say, no, Deb, I'm not doing that. That's totally fine. It is your talk. So then I'll go into a little bit on the prepare and practice, but does anybody have any questions before I do that? Any other thoughts that came to mind? You're all good? Okay. All right. So a little bit about preparing and practice. This is the best thing. In a TED Talk, you have to memorize the whole thing. And this situation, I think, right, Melissa, they're at a podium and they get to have their notes. Is that correct?
Yes, I think you can refer to notes for sure.
Yes. So the beauty of this is I strongly encourage you to memorize your opening as best as you can and memorize that last line of your ending. And if you can look up for that and know it well enough so that you're not always looking down, it will have a greater impact. So one of the things that I'd like to suggest to you for preparing for your presentation after it's all ready to go is to use your imagination in a meditation. I've done this since I started speaking because guess what? I used to get terrified to speak in public and I wanted to be a public speaker, right? So I started to do this imagination and meditation to calm myself down. And in this imagination, I want you to imagine your favorite outcome. Imagine yourself at the podium. Imagine yourself presenting and seeing women in the audience nodding in understanding. If you have something funny, imagine them laughing. And imagine yourself walking off and feeling really proud of what you've done, because this is not easy. It's not an easy thing, but you can do it. And in any way I can support you, I will. I did this imagination so well one time. It was for a group of 300 women. It was like one of those women's days out. And I knew that if I had connected with them, I imagined that women would come up to me afterwards and hug me. And that's what happened. Some women said, "Oh, can I hug you?" I was like, "Yes, I imagined that." Okay. And using the power of your voice, if you noticed in my talk, I started very slow, and then there were points where I sped up, right? Our voice has so many tools for timing and rhythm. So when I said, and then all my justifications and came bubbling to the surface, right? And that was another opportunity where I gave 3 things. What was that again? There was my judgment, there was my defensiveness, and there was my indecision. 3 things. We think in 3s. So if you're going to do some kind of example or even your points, if you have 3 main ones, people will remember those. But I used my voice to slow up and speed and slow down depending on what I was saying. So, and I believe in the power of the pause before you start. Just stand in the silence. So everyone's like, what happened? Are they going to talk? And then you're going to talk and everybody will be listening. So you can practice on a Zoom or in front of a mirror or with me. And as Reverend Sarah pointed out, bring your authentic self to your talk. And that is your vulnerability. That is your honesty. That is, from your perspective, why this grant is so important. And I encourage you to watch my TED Talk. I gave you a link here. It's very encouraging, and you will see why, because I give you permission to earn the grade of a C. So, all right, all A's are out, guys, because when you try for an A, you're going to get yourself so stressed out that you're going to stop the creativity and the ideas that you need to have. And I believe this so much that I did a TED Talk and I was selected. And so watch that. Okay. And the last thing I want to share with you is how to work with me. The sooner, the better. So I know you've got a lot of work to do, but if you just want to set up a call this week, just to introduce yourself and say, you know, Deb, your talk, I had this idea based on what you said. That would be great. I would love to hear it and just get you going and encourage you. And I'm happy to look at anything you write. You have unlimited email with me from now until May 4th, even May 4th morning. I've had clients, actually do their whole talk for me. That is absolutely okay. So this is the part where I tell Melissa, yeah, I say 2 times I'll connect with you, but honestly, I'm here till May 4th. No matter how many times you want to connect, it's up to you. And I know so many of you are already speakers, and I honor that in every way. If anything, just utilize me as an outside source that might see something that you don't, because you are so close to your organization, that sometimes you might say something or miss something, and I can be that voice for you to go, I didn't understand this part, or can you clarify, right? That's what I'm here for. So you can start by emailing me, or you can book time with me. I think in your email, it says right there, and you can just click on it and it should open my calendar. But just reach out. This is what I'm here for the Until You Speak. And I love this. And I know that you all have incredible organizations, and I can't wait to hear all about them. So thank you very much.
Yeah. That's so helpful. We're so thrilled to be able to have you as a resource to us all. Are there any questions for Deb at this point? I think she's made it clear that she's open to there for you, so do take advantage of that. And just kind of as final wrap up, I do want to clarify for the grant amount, Catherine posted in the chat, you are asking for $100,000 grant. What, depending on the size of our membership, we distribute out all of our funds that come in. So it varies. And so all of you are winners, right? All of you, there'll be $200,000 grants, and then there'll be 3 $20,000 general operating grants. And then those extra $2,000 will also then go to the winners as general operating. So for clarity's sake, that the $100,000 is the right amount to be asking in the membership. Yeah, congratulations. It's a fabulous group of organizations and of proposals, and we're really excited to hear more from you. And reach out to me if you have any questions, and we look forward to the next rush ahead to our annual meeting.
Melissa, do you also want to mention just quickly the individual feedback that you're providing?
Yeah, so you all have received from me in the last 24 hours additional feedback. Of course, it's mostly encouraging. It's just additional food for thought, and we know that this is a big ask in terms of working with 8 minutes to try to communicate the need, tell us about your organization, tell us about the project, and make the emotional connection. It's a challenge, which is why we do have Deb. So you'll have to kind of balance out, from the feedback that we've provided you. They're just kind of extra things to think about, but in no way are they to be taken as directives or anything more than these are just a couple of thoughts that came out in case it's helpful. And if it's not, we understand that as well. We know that you all are the experts on what you do and what you're wanting to do with these funds, and we'll let you tell us how that is best communicated.
I second that, Melissa. Absolutely.
So, great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks
Okay.
so much.
Thanks so much.
Everyone.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Deb.
You're so welcome. Okay, thank you.